What are some of the worst examples of the "we've always done it that way" mindset? There is no reason for a cashiers should always stand rule. It's based on outdated tradition and not much in the way of practically. When I moved from PA to Washington, I had to register my car. No biggie, except the title was still held by the bank since I was making payments on it. Now for some reason, even getting a copy of that title is a bit of a crap show, involving quite a few fees and a long wait time. I didn't want to deal with that, especially when PAs dollar the bank with my title when making everything difficult. So I went to my local Washington Doll and explained the situation. They looked up the process and said, well, this is dumb. Let me take care of it. We just need a single number off that piece of paper anyways. Should take like 5 minutes. What state is your title held in? Pennsylvania. FFFFFF. You might want to sit down. 2.5 freaking hours later, the bank finally says they will release a copy of the title if they get an official request from the Department of License in Washington state. Great. They get put on hold. Doll lady types up a quick request and faxes it over. Takes it off hold. All I see is her look like she's about to start screaming. She puts them back on hold. So apparently, they need a handwritten request. A typed copy isn't something they can legally work with. Wow, but why? I've no idea. They just thought it was incredibly unprofessional that we sent them a typed document. So there it was that I had to send a handwritten document that had to be explicitly polite, asking for a single number off the top of my title to please be released. On top of requiring a handwritten note, apparently this is not unusual for PA/WA transplants, since PA is one of the few states that still issues paper titles and is very protective about who is even allowed to look at the title. Decades ago, anybody who obtained your bank account number and the bank's routing number could make an unauthorized withdrawal of money out of your account. But now, thanks to much better technology, anybody who obtains your bank account number and the bank's routing number can make an unauthorized withdrawal of money out of your account. Banks say there's no way to prevent this, such as by delaying withdrawals by a single day until the customer explicitly grants permission. Good thing those numbers are kept secret by being printed on every check I write. My most recent job was as a developer at a small software company. When I started, there was no source control. The programmers would sit behind a computer and compare their code line by line with a file compare tool. When I brought up that there was a tool to fix this, they didn't trust it. We don't want to change how we do things just because it's easier. My company has offices in a few countries. I recently went to one of these offices for 2 months. Was meant to be 3, but I had to get the frick out of there to retrain them because the office was clearly struggling and on the verge of being shut down. Now, I'm not saying I'm amazing at my job, but I know what I'm doing. When I'd try telling them about any small change they needed to make, I'd get, but this is how we do things here. The clients won't like change. Yes, but you're clearly struggling. Have you asked the client if they're okay with change? Number. So how do you know they won't like it? Anything is better than the shit show currently kicking off in that office. But nope. They don't want to change. Half of them are likely to be fired soon because of this, so it's their loss. As we all know, businesses that refuse to change will be the only ones to stand the test of time. The only way to move forward is by standing still. I have 2 co-workers, our admins, who print an email and scan it back to themselves as a PDF. Yes, I've shown them how to save the original digital file as a PDF. Yes, they keep printing and scanning. One of my co-workers always says she's not a computer person. I love that. The technology that all modern businesses run off, and you don't do it. You're very useful. My Australian version of the DMV has online payment options. Like rego and license can be paid online from the comfort of home, except only during business hours. A freaking online service using bank transfers that is only open during business hours. 9/5. It's online. A lot of Hong Kong government services can be used online, just as long as you've physically submitted a paper form and waited for them to physically post a USB stick with a digital certificate on it. Maybe not the worst, but I think this story is worth sharing. Banana farmer Doug takes his future son-in-law and my friend Jim out to pick bananas. Bananas are grown on steep slopes around here with roads winding back and forth up the hill. So Doug parks the truck at the top, walks down the hill and starts cutting bunches that weigh 25-45 kilograms and then hauls them back up the hill to the truck. Jim takes one look at this setup and then says, why don't we park the truck at the bottom of the hill and start picking there so we are carrying the bananas down the hill instead of up? Then we can move the truck up the rows as we go. Because we always do it this way is the reply. So Jim says, humor me. Let's try it my way. Just for today. Doug reluctantly agrees. End of the day comes. Bananas are picked and they're back at the house enjoying a cold beer. Doug says, you know what, Jim? Your way was a lot easier. You mean why don't we park the car at the bottom of the hill? I'm a pediatric resident, working with archaic old attending doctors who enforce decisions based on how it was done back in the day rather than data supported and evidence based medicine. I can't stand working with these sorts of people. Good luck. When you do something different, expect a long story about a case 20 years ago and a long dead professor. Family members who have had children before you. They seem to take it as a personal slight against them if you do anything differently to the way they did it the 15th of October 2020 years previously. My parents beat me relentlessly if I misbehaved. Now I steadfastly refuse to hit my kids. This makes me a bad parent in their eyes. We use stock pickers where I work. Prepare for heck if you use a picker that a first shift guy wants because they've been using it for the last X years. I've gotten threats to my property, job, and self because my shift just so happens to overlap theirs sometimes and I'm on some random piece of equipment. First shift people will remove the keys from their forklifts here and hide them. I found a set and took it because it was the only one with hydraulic fork spacing, which makes my job so much faster. They found out and complained to the supervisor. I told them I can ask corporate why they're leasing a forklift for 24 hours a day and only using them 8. They begrudgingly let me use it now. Job I was in would handwrite patient notes, type them up, then print them again, only to file them. I suggested typing them from the get-go as everyone had laptops anyway, and then attaching the digital notes to the patient profile on our global drive. Once all existing notes were archived, we went from having 10 on-site filing cabinets to half a cabinet. People are technophobic. I just started a new job at a small clinic and absolutely everything they have is analog. Their contacts are in a Rolodex and nowhere else. Old files take up an entire garage behind the clinic. The schedule, handled by individual clinicians even though most patients see at least 2 therapists when they come, has to be handwritten week by week. All notes are handwritten. It's driving me crazy. Using long annoying Excel sheets when we have systems that make collecting data a piece of cake. Banks not transferring money in weekends. This is because in the old days, without internet and such, the money transfers were done by hand, but now it is done by computers. The only reason it still happens is that one of the banks has the money and get interest over it in those weekends. I'm an American living in South Korea, and when I first moved here, I found I could deposit money in an ATM any day of the week, and it was immediately available in my bank account. Same goes for people transferring money to you from their account. I was floored. My boss will insist we do things his way because that's the way he did it before he had any employees and that's what worked for him. However, we keep having to lull him into letting us do things our way because his way was just slowing down and hurting our business. He's seen the progress we've made, mostly the money but also customer Saturday, and when he's not there on Saturday we are able to get more work done and money in a day than this guy will do in a week because of how efficient we are. We work on cars. I work in the construction field as a safety QA geotechnician and sometimes our older subcontractors will do trench work as deep as 10 feet without any sort of protection from collapse. When I stop work and tell them that it's dangerous and they could die, they get heated and tell me that they've never had any problems with trenches and it's how we've always done it. We politely ask them not to come back until they take a trench safety class. One of our subcontractors got the crap fined out of them by OSHA because they had a guy die from falling with no proper fall protection in place. The bad part, this company had been fined by OSHA in the past for this very reason, yet didn't change anything because that's how we have always done it. Now our big customer banned that sub from their property. SHM. Like half the restaurant owners on Kitchen Nightmares. You can't serve customers rotten food. Well, We've always done it this way. I work in a restaurant, and one night, I went to clean the soda nozzle on the fountain. I removed the one for lemonade water, and it broke a boss's mind. He said we leave that one on overnight. I know, I'm just gonna give it a little scrub and hook it back up. In case someone wants water, we have a porter who cleans the place. The busser thought I was trying to deny this guy a glass of water. It can be reattached. I'm going to clean it and reattach it within 90 seconds. It just needs to be cleaned every once in a while. He looked like his freaking heart was broken. Restaurant workers are extremely susceptible to microchosmal thinking. Felt bad for the guy. Fricked his crap up. In several academic fields there's a culture of older, more experienced people acting crappy towards their younger subordinates, and the younger people just having to take it because the older people have all the power. Eventually the younger people grow older and end up being crappy to their subordinates because in their view they've served their time. This will never end until the people with the power stop being buttholes. Joining a work environment and making suggestions to co-workers who have been doing the job for 40+ years. Some appreciate learning of an alternative way of working while some get all huffed up about learning something new that would increase their productivity. Next time, don't ask me how I do my work faster then. I joined a government office of old people a few years ago. In May they made me the IT contact. The struggle is real. I made a shared calendar so that people can reserve our conference rooms instead of using a paper calendar book, and people freaked. Boy, girl seating. I work in a preschool, and this older woman constantly insists on children sitting this way. Even when she walks into the middle of a lunch that she's not catering, she'll make kids stop eating, stand up, and move them around just so they're sitting. Boy, girl, I honestly can't see any reason to use it. My 75-year-old co-worker Betty Jean, who will randomly say this is how we've always done it, about things we've never done that way. That's a terrible example. We've never done it that way. Indian marriage. Freaking formalities. It simply adds up to the stress. Somehow my parents feel our ancestors were good role models. IT guy here. Probably people, in this day and age, refusing to adapt to change in technology. I worked at a university back when Windows XP support ended, so we decided to hunt down every last computer still running XP and bring it up to 7. Now, there weren't many, and when we did find one, the faculty or staff using it were always cool with us updating it. Always. Except for one guy, one psychology professor. He had a couple research computers running a very specific piece of software from, like 1998, for data entry and analysis. This version would not work on Windows 7 and there was way newer, far better versions of the software available, but he chose to stay on the old stuff. He fought us for a week over this, refused to let us into the lab and update the systems, but also freaked out when we told him his computers would be taken off our network if they stayed on XP. Eventually, he relented. We got the computers updated, put on the oldest version of that data software that would work with 7, and called it a day. But the mother sucker called us at least 5 times a month for a year about these systems. Every little nitpick with the new software, every little hiccup on the computers, he'd call, we'd fix it, and then he'd look at us with this smug smile and say something like, gosh, I sure wish I go back to the old stuff that worked. Frick you Mel. TL. DR. Older professor fought tooth and nail to stay on old, out-of-date OS and software. My first major experience with this, but certainly not the last. The rules for billiards on a given day seem to depend on who I am playing because that's the way they've always played. Monopoly is the same crap. I've got a friend who insists that they can lay down 3-4 cards in a single turn in Uno and then says house rules. Boy, this is my house, get your crap rules out of my face. 5-day work weeks, 40+ hour work weeks. In a lot of jobs it's totally unnecessary and inefficient, but damn it, we've got to work that much to prove we're not slackers. Frick work-life balance. We didn't have it when we had to shovel coal and we're not going to have it now. Dressing all your soldiers in bright red trousers, lining them up in parade ground formation, and marching toward the enemy lines. Here's looking at you, France in 1914. Or choosing commanders based on birth over skill. Looking at you, Austria-Hungary. Anything that involves AutoCAD, When I was searching for a job, I was extremely hesitant to apply for anything that required knowledge of AutoCAD. AutoCAD is the jack of all trades, master of none. It's just barely a step up above from board drafting. There are more specialized software for specific fields, but AutoCAD still comes in handy for doodling. After years of my grandfather pronouncing my sister-in-law's name wrong, I finally, politely, corrected him. He stared daggers at me for a moment and all he could come up with was, "Well, I'm old and I've been calling her that for the past 10 years and will continue to do so." Yes, he does still call her that, and yes, he is still quite the butthole sometimes. And IT's still not her freaking name. Churchgoers that sit in the same pew, year after year, they get upset, sometimes confrontational, if they find anyone else sitting in their pew upon entering the building. And you can't even sit there if they died of old age, because there are 9 other slightly younger family members who have had their eye on that specific pew location for the last 40 years. The most profound example of this in my life was when a co-worker received a food order via text from another co-worker, but I was the one ordering the food. So I asked her to copy and paste it to me, but instead she calls me while I'm driving and gives me 3 people's orders. I ask her to copy and paste a text or forward it to me because I won't remember all the orders, but she insists that I write it down while I'm driving, which I did not do. She still to this day refuses to learn how to copy and paste or forward texts. Edit. Clarified that I don't write and drive. Went to Lowe's to get some paint, and the relatively new worker is mixing a sample size for us, and puts a little dot of paint on the lid like you would any other full can of paint. The older gentleman working says, "Oh, we don't put paint spots on the sample lids." I ask why. He says, "Because we just don't." I worked the paint desk at Home Depot for a long time. We also did not put a dot of paint on the lid of samples. Reason being, the label that told you all of the color info was as big as the top of the sample lid, and if you put that dot in the wrong spot, over the barcode or formula, it could be a bee to figure out what the color was. People in the tech world like app devs or operations teams who don't want automation or to move on to the newest technologies because we've always done it this way. This is literally the nature of the field. Some of these people are old enough that they were getting in on it when people didn't even have home computers. I'm going to get into this field about making things that make people's lives better and easier, but when it's my turn I refuse to learn the newer, better, usually easier way of doing things. Blindly voting for the political party that you were raised to vote for without learning facts or being able to open your mind to different viewpoints. It's like football to some. The college lecture format. Most professors teach that way because it's how they learned, and it was good enough for them. But there's a surprising amount of research going on about how to actually effectively teach, and people who do such research, including Nobel laureate in physics Carl Wieman, have compared that teaching method to bloodletting as a medical treatment. That is to say, any benefit from it is purely coincidental. USA gymnastics. Using the "we've always done it that way" mentality is what enabled decades of emotional, physical and sexual abuse. I think gymnastics in general, Chinese and Russian gymnastics, are also pretty bad. All training all day every day. Every time there is a scheduling conflicts at work, I offer to make a calendar. I offer to do this for free, I'm paid hourly, and to go to everyone in the office once a week and ask them what new stuff they have upcoming. Every time I offer, the response is, "Well, nobody is used to coordinating schedules, so it probably wouldn't work," and I die a little inside. Yesterday there were 3 events, one that went to 4, one that went 5-6:30 and one that went to 6. Just start doing it anyway. The current place I work never had anyone auditing inventory. They were reluctant to start looking at it. I just started doing it one day. Now everything runs smoother and everyone is grateful. Just gotta force them to let go of their bull crap. Education. We know that the educational system we currently have is not working. We are falling further and further behind, but we keep moving deck chairs around on the Titanic. We need a massive reboot to produce students who can compete in a global economy. Not sure if it counts, but Alexander Stubb, former Finnish Prime Minister, claimed that mandatory military service for men isn't sexist because it's a tradition. I was a few times in a company where our family's friend works as a head director to check on students while they are taking exams to make sure they aren't cheating. I'm pretty sure there is one job word description which sums this whole paragraph. I just can't find out how this position is called. I was teaching there once in a while their employees. They send 20,000 emails every third week and 10,000 every week. They do it by hand in Ms. Outlook. They have an Excel with 30,000 entries and they copy it from there to mail to option and send the same email to everyone newsletter. Not personalized. It takes them 2 days to do it. Their main work is always behind and they can't get on top with the amount of important work they have. I was asked to help them out when I was there watching students if I had time. Oh man, I did not have time for that. Just to be sure it's understood. If you put 30,000 email addresses in the mail to form and send it, their server would send about 100 emails and then just scratch the rest. Their IT technician told them to send it by 100 every once in a while. That's a regular practice in IT. It's fine. They do it by hand :0. I offered them to make a simple script to do this for them to automate the process. It would take them seconds to send it every few weeks and cost them 0. Because we are friends. They refused because they were doing it that way forever. The people who refused my offer were 35 and 39. Don't work too hard fast. You'll make us look bad mentality. If I finish my work then let me chill. If there's more work then give me that crap. I'm not turning a screw for 10 minutes. Daylight savings time causes a huge uptick in accidents every spring and serves no real function for tons of the population in the US anymore. But we still do it. MF96 jobs. Yes, it's needed in some fields but not all. How about we complete our work and go home? I think unnecessary mandatory hours just makes people frick around more. Also, lots of jobs these days could be done from home. In my state, a woman can't register her car without written consent from her husband. Nobody ever bothered to change the law. Edit. Jesus, this blew up. First of all, for my own personal safety I will not be revealing my location. We're up north is all I'll say. Secondly, the DMV here does enforce the law, although if a lady brings her man with her they'll allow her to do it. Edit 2. Sorry for the delay. Been busy with work. So after some digging turns out it's not a state law. Not surprised really, but it's a town ordinance that nobody's changed in the last near 100 years. No, it doesn't always happen, but man does it get annoying to hear these idiots cited to turn people away. Kind of a lesser known one, but you ever tried to make music with a DAW? So many things are needlessly complicated because it's just what people are used to. I really want an intuitive synth software. Bro wasn't expecting to be triggered by something in this thread. The countless hours spent learning overly complex spools that newer software fixes is just awful. If it ain't PB though, you're gonna have to just go through a miniature heal experience per door. One day we'll put this crap to rest. I'm a scientist. In my lab I will either ask why do we do it this way, what is the point, or I will suggest the proper way to do something because they have been doing it wrong or inefficiently. I get this response all the time: well, we've just always done it that way. This is the shittiest response a person in science could have. It just shows that they can't think critically and shouldn't be a scientist to begin with. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.